Hey guys, it's Bella and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read during the spring. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know that I usually talk about what books that I've read every month, but that kind of just got a little too overwhelming and stressful for me, so I decided to kind of pare it down into chunks. So I am going to be talking about all the books that I read from April to June and just make one video. Also, I just wanted to put more effort into videos that I really loved, like my LGBT Rex video, and I have some writing vlogs and stuff coming, which I wouldn't be able to do as much if I was like pumping out these monthly videos about what I read. So anyway, let's just get in right to it. So the first book that I read in April was Let the Great World Spin by Colin McCann, and I actually read this for school, so I don't remember a whole lot about it. It was pretty good. There were definitely some moments that stuck out to me in this. Basically, Let the Great World Spin is kind of a compilation of a bunch of fictional slices of life moments in New York that kind of all tie back together through one like thread, and you kind of see how like people's lives are interconnected. So it's kind of like, oh, everyone like has something in common, like it's kind of that message. So I don't know, I enjoyed it, but again, it was a school book, so it's kind of hard for me to tell like what I would rate it, because I guess I look at school books differently than books I read for fun. The next book that I read in April are books that I talk about a lot, and those are the first two Heartstopper books by Alice Olsman. And these books are about two boys, one is gay and one's bi, and they're trying to figure out their identity, and in the process they fall in love. And it has a lot of really good mental health representation. It has good trans representation, and, you know, as I said, has a gay and bi main character. So it's just very wholesome story, and I talk about these books a lot on my channel. I reread them in preparation for the Heartstopper TV show that came out on Netflix, which was amazing, and I included these in my LGBT Rex video. So if you want to hear me gushing more about these books, then go check that video out. The next book that I read in April is a book that I haven't thought about in a long time, and I kind of forgot that I was like finishing these books out during that time, which is Warstorm by Victoria Aveyard. Warstorm is the last in the Red Queen books, which are pretty popular, but that was the first time that I read them, and I read them via audiobook, which the audiobooks were very good. I enjoyed it a lot. Warstorm was, I think, my favorite out of all of them. I'm pretty sure there's actually a like novella or something that I started, but I just never finished, and I really can't remember why. Maybe I'll finish that this month, but I did really enjoy Warstorm. The Red Queen series is about this girl named Mare, and she has red blood in a world where silver blood is valued because people who have silver blood have magical abilities, such as like whispering in people's minds or being very strong, that kind of thing. And, you know, she's a red-blooded person, so she and generally the Reds are very poor, and they work for the Silvers in factories, and it's just a very not good situation for them. So it has that kind of dystopian element, but also has some fantasy in there. So I liked how Victoria Aveyard kind of combined those elements, and it just made for a really interesting series. I definitely recommend it. The series as a whole gets like 4 stars, but Warstorm in particular gets 5 stars. Okay, now on to the month of May, where I read a whopping total of 1 book. Yeah, May was not good for me, but that book I did read, I liked okay. I think I only gave it 3 stars actually, which It's kind of harsh for me. I don't know. I feel like it's in that line between 3 and 4 stars. I can't really tell if I didn't like it as much because of the mindset that I was in while reading it, or I don't know. But I didn't hate the book by any means. The book was Mexican Gothic, which is a kind of horror-ish Gothic book about this girl who has to go to this creepy old manor because her cousin sent a letter that looks like she is not doing well. She is seeing things. She is sick, you know, she is not doing well, so the main character goes up to check on her and bad things ensue in that manner. I think the horror element of it was done very well, but there wasn't really a whole lot more to the book. I'd have liked to see more interactions between characters, and I'm just a character-driven person, and I feel like this book was a lot about driving the plot. So those were kind of my main complaints, but I do think the book was really good, and a lot of people would like it. It just personally wasn't for me, and I would have liked to see more with it. But again, didn't hate it, so I just gave it 3 stars. Okay, June. June was the month where I shone, and I read a lot of books in June. Starting out with Daisy Jones and the Six, which I absolutely loved. This is one of my favorite books of this year, and I had been really looking forward to reading this because not only is this book by one of my favorite authors of all time, Taylor Jenkins Reid, who also wrote Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I've just heard really good things about this book, and I was really excited to give it a try, and it did not disappoint me. Daisy Jones and the Six is about a fictional band who gets together in the late 60s, and it's about the story of how they got together and how they fell apart. It's very interesting. It's told in an interview kind of style, so it's not really like any other book I've ever read. Like, basically it's just the characters talking to each other and the interviewer the whole time, and I really enjoyed it. It made this book pretty fast-paced and definitely engaging the whole time. It's a pretty realistic take on Hollywood and drugs and just general culture around that time. I really appreciated it. There were so many quotable lines in this book. I would definitely recommend. The next book is another one of my favorites, and that is Felix Ever After by Kacent Callender. This is just a really lovely book about a trans guy who is discovering his identity, and he's trying to fall in love because he's never fallen in love before and he really wants to. This has a lot of great representation, and I thought it really explored the different ideas and opinions in the LGBT community very well. I also talked a bit about this in my LGBT Rex video, so if you want a more in-depth explanation on what I thought and why I thought this book was great, then check that video out. I finally reread Heartstopper 3 and 4. I don't know why it took me 2 months to reread these. I was planning on rereading them like right after I reread the first 2, but it just didn't happen. So I thought, what better time to do it than Pride Month? Again, I just love these so much, and Heartstopper 4 is definitely where, like 3 and 4 definitely where more of the mental health rep come in, and she starts to explore other issues other than just like the LGBT community. Next, I have The House on the Krillin Sea, and this is an amazing, just really sweet book that I also recommended in my LGBT Rex video. This is one of my most recent LGBT reads, and it's just like so cozy and amazing, and it has a lot of themes about family and adoption. Basically, it is about this guy named Linus who lives in this kind of dystopian fantasy-ish society where there are magical people and with powers or different things that just make them different than like the normal human. And so the children are kept in orphanages, which are kind of controlled by the government, and Linus is one of the workers that is sent out to maintain these and shut them down if necessary, like if the kids are being mistreated or something is happening that the government doesn't want to happen. So he's sent out to this one orphanage, which is like all the way out in the middle of nowhere because it contains some of the most powerful and unusual children that are known to the government, so they're kind of kept away from everybody. His job is to see if the orphanage is doing its job correctly, and he ends up kind of finding a little family of his own. The next book that I read is the 5th Shadowhunter graphic novel. Not a whole lot to say about it. It was enjoyable and the artwork was beautiful as usual. I just love Shadowhunters, and I thought it was finally time for me to catch up on the graphic novels that have been coming out. The last two that I read kind of go together. I read them as audiobooks. That is Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue and Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky. This is another LGBT book that I read during June, and it's basically about this pompous aristocratic guy who is going on his like tour before he has to take over the family legacy, and this takes place in like the 1700s or whatever, so you know, everything's pretty strict back then, but he's in love with his best friend, and the whole time is him trying to get his best friend to love him back, and a lot of things go wrong. And the next one is kind of like a sequel or like a novella to the result of everything that happened after the first book, and it's just like a fun little read. I would give these books like 4.5 stars. They were really engaging and funny, and the romance was great. The main character takes a little getting used to. He can be kind of a prick sometimes, but you kind of get to know him and love him through his actions. So those were all the books that I read during this spring. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on those post notifications. Bye!